Welcome to the debate featuring the candidates for Chautauqua County Clerk. This debate will feature incumbent County Clerk Larry Barmore of Sinclairville, who is running on the Republican and Conservative tickets. David Salley of Fredonia is running on the Democratic and Working Families line. I'm Julia Ciesla-Hanley. I'm the Public Affairs Director here at WRFA, and I'm being joined by our media partners, Terry Frank of Media One Groups, WJTN, and Justin Gould of Western New York News Now. This event is broadcasting live on 107.9 FM and streaming on WRFALP.com. You can also watch the live stream of this debate on media partner WNY News Now's Facebook page and WNYNewsNow.com/live. And our other media partner, WJTN, as well as WRFA, will rebroadcast this debate at a later date. This debate is being made possible through funding for the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Our panel will pose a series of questions to the candidates to discuss, and each candidate will have the opportunity to ask one question to the other. The candidates will be given 90 seconds each for an opening statement. Afterward, they will have up to 60 seconds to respond to each question, along with 60 seconds for any rebuttals. If a candidate runs out of time, our official timekeeper, Nate DeTanto, will notify the candidate with the following sound. They will then have 5 seconds to wrap up, at which point I will cut them off. Also, you will both be notified when you have 30 seconds remaining on your clock. So let's begin. We've done a coin toss to determine the order for opening statements. Mr. Barmore deferred, so Mr. Salley will go first, followed by Mr. Barmore, and will rotate the starting candidate for each question thereafter. Mr. Salley, you have 2 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you. My name is David Salley. My wife and I moved to Chautauqua County in January of 2000. We're going to be celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary later this month, and we're currently in the process of restoring a 150-year-old farmhouse. I am running for the position of Chautauqua County Clerk under the Democratic and the Working Families Party's lines. When you take away the political labels, the office of County Clerk is the office of the database manager. You have databases. You have the Department of Motor Vehicles has the license plates and the driver's registrations. When you go in to get gas, the gas pumps have an inspection sticker, which is done through the Bureau of Weights and Measures, which answers to the county clerk. If you buy property, there's a search and survey, which is through the county clerk. If you're into genealogy, which a number of people have started during the pandemic, and you want to know where your great uncle Larry got married, that's through the town historians, which go through the county clerk. It's all databases. I am a professional database manager, both by education and by job experience. I have a master's degree in information technology from the University of Buffalo. I've even published a couple of small technical papers on the subject. I retired from the Seneca Nation of Indians Medical Center, where I completely redesigned their database reporting system, 150 different reports, customizing it to their exact specifications, and I hope to do the same for Chautauqua County and make their databases more efficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salley. Mr. Barmore, you have 2 minutes for your opening remarks.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me here this evening. My name is Larry Barmore, and I am your county clerk. As county clerk, I oversee 6 departments. I am the clerk of land records and the clerk of the Supreme and County Courts. I'm also the records management officer, the supervisor of the Weights and Measures Department, and the supervisor of the historian's office, and I also oversee the operation of 3 DMV offices. Since becoming county clerk nearly 8 years ago, I have implemented electronic recording of land records and electronic filing of court records. I was one of the first clerks in New York State to do this. This not only reduced paper handling by 90%, and allowed me to reduce staffing, saving $70,000 per year, but also provided time and cost-saving measures for thousands of residents and attorneys who can now submit documents for recording and filing from the convenience of their homes or offices. I also made changes in the Weights and Measures Department to streamline operations that has reduced taxpayers' share by $90,000 per year. In 2015, I moved the Jamestown DMV office from a location on a side hill with no parking lot to a level location with a parking lot for customers, as well as 10 on-street parking spaces in front of the office and a separate parking lot for employees. We also paid the city of Jamestown several thousands of dollars per year to allow our employees to park in the city-owned parking ramp. Between the parking savings and the lease I negotiated on the new location, I saved taxpayers $10,000 per year. I've implemented many other cost-saving measures that I cannot name in 2 minutes. Adding together all the cost savings that I have implemented since becoming county clerk, I have saved taxpayers around $750,000 since taking office. As I promised, I put my over 40 years of business experience to work for the taxpayer and delivered for the residents of Chautauqua County.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Barmore.
You're welcome.
We'll move along now to our first question, and this is the only question provided to candidates ahead of time. And that question is, what is the biggest issue or challenge for the county clerk's office? And we'll begin with Mr. Barmore. You have 90 seconds for your initial response.
Thank you. The biggest issue for the county clerk's office in 2022 is getting the DMV back to income levels that cover the cost of operations. The county retains 12.7% of all funds collected at the county DMV offices. This amount has not changed in over 30 years, despite the fact that the state continues to siphon business from the local DMVs to improve their income. There are many transactions that must be done at a local office. The state believes that local offices will never close because residents need to be served. Online renewals have become very popular, especially with younger people, and this takes income from the local offices. The state is now allowing drivers to renew their driver's licenses without an eye test. The state tells them to go to a local office within a year and that we will give them a free eye test and send it to the state. To compound the situation, the state computer system is constantly going down, and we have no idea how long the downtime will be. Sometimes it's a few minutes, sometimes hours. We often have a long line of customers and we have to send them away. And this has been happening since before I got here, and despite our state representatives and our Clerks Association working to get this fixed, the state has done little to correct the problem. As a member of the Clerks Association DMV Committee, I will continue to work hard to hold the state accountable to the people of Chautauqua County.
Thank you, Mr. Barmore. For Mr. Salley, same question. What is the biggest issue or challenge for the county clerk's office? You have 90 seconds.
The biggest issue is serving all of the people. You cannot run a government office as if it's a business. A business focuses on profit and loss. If a portion of the market isn't profitable, then they don't serve that market. A government office has to serve everyone. We have a significant Hispanic population within Chautauqua County, but there's no one in any of the offices that speaks Spanish. People are bringing in their school-aged children to be interpreters, and this simply isn't acceptable. So we need to get a Spanish speaker in to better serve the people. The Jamestown parking lot for the DMV is woefully inadequate. I counted 13 spaces. The one disability space is the one farthest from the door all the way to the sidewalk. There's one entrance and exit, and it's narrow, a car and a half wide, and there have been multiple fender benders in the last several years. That we need a better facility than what is there.
Okay. And Mr. Barmore, you have 60 seconds for a rebuttal if you wish.
Well, thank you. Well, number one, we do have a Spanish-speaking clerk in the Dunkirk DMV, and we have had for quite some time. We don't have one in the county clerk's office, but Suhail Solar works right around the corner, and anytime that we need her, she's more than happy to come over and help us out. As far as the DMV situation goes, I had a spot all picked out, and the representatives from the city of Jamestown came to the legislature and asked them not to approve it because they wanted me to keep the DMV downtown because they were trying to improve the downtown. So I agreed to go there. They showed me several locations. That was the most acceptable one they showed me. And when they agreed, the legislature approved the move, and that's why we're where we're at. I know it's inadequate in places, but it's a heck of a lot better than where we used to be.
Okay. Mr. Salley, do you have a rebuttal?
It's better than it used to be. It's still not good. We need to continue negotiating. I am still hearing reports of people bringing in their Spanish kids, so we still need more interpreters. One here, one there is simply not enough. We need a significant number of them.
Thank you very much, Julie. It's good to be here and with the two candidates. We've already had the DMV brought up, so let's stay with that for just a moment. Mr. Salley is saying that we need more in the way of Spanish interpreters. Do we get one for each office, or how should that be handled? I'll go to Mr. Salley first. You've brought it up, so tell us, how would you deal with this issue?
With any office section, there is a natural attrition. People retire, they move away, they get a different job. So you always are rehiring on a gradual basis. There are civic service exams for Spanish-speaking clerks. We would need to advertise them heavily. The ideal situation would be a minimum of one at each Department of Motor Vehicles and somebody at the county office who could go to whatever office was needed. Worst case scenario is you would have to hire a separate translator who would go where they were needed, perhaps part-time here, there, and a rotating schedule. But we do need more Spanish-speaking people to help the Hispanic community of Chautauqua.
Mr. Barmore, I'll give you 60 seconds
Sure.
to...
Mr. Salley's quite the dreamer. He has no idea how budgets work in the county, how taxpayers demand that we stay within a certain budget. It would be nice to have lots of these things. In fact, we've had two Spanish-speaking people apply for the DMV job, and I've hired them both. One of them left us because his girlfriend wanted him to go someplace else. We have in every single county office a phone number that we can call if anybody comes in and speaks a language other than English, and the person on the other end of that line will translate between the customer and the clerk, even if they speak Vietnamese or Chinese or whatever. It's not just Spanish. And the thing is most people of Hispanic descent in Chautauqua County do speak English. And those that don't know that wherever they go, they have to take someone with them to translate. It doesn't make any difference if going to the store or the gas station, whatever. There's just not a lot of business people where they speak Spanish, and they know they have to take a translator with them, and they do that, you know. So I don't think the problem's as big as Mr. Salley's trying to make it out to be.
Is it as big as you're making it out to be, Mr. Salley?
This has been the #1 complaint that I've heard when I've done all my meet and greets and talking with the public. I'm not asking for any changes in the public. I'm saying as people retire or move away from the offices, we try to replace them with more Spanish speakers. Mm-hmm. So there would be utterly no change to the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Mr. Barmore, did you want to rebut to that?
Well, just to the fact that if they don't take the civil service test and apply for the job, it's kind of hard to hire them. And I thought about just having one position Spanish speaking, but then when nobody wants the job, you can't fill it. So I try to find people who speak multi-languages, but it's very difficult.
All right. Well, gentlemen, if we could move on from the DMVs to your skill set this evening, what skills in the business sector or otherwise would you bring to the office that would give you an edge over your opponent? Let's start with Mr. Barmore.
Sure. Mr. Salley says that this isn't a business and it shouldn't be run like a business. So you could tell he's never run a business, otherwise he would know better. He says that businesses don't serve people that don't make them lots of money. Well, in the county clerk's office, we're not that kind of business. If you're going to spend 25 cents in our office, we want your 25 cents. We try to do everything that we can to help every person. Every person is welcome in our office. And all our offices are a user-based funded system, so to speak. If you need our clerk's office or our DMV or our weights and measures or whatever, you pay for the service. If you don't need it, you don't pay. And we collect fees for things that we do. The fees are all set by New York State. And my department is the only department that takes in more money than it costs to operate, and we give money back into the general fund to help decrease everybody's taxes. The other departments all take tax money in order to operate. And so, you know, if you're going to come in and turn in an old plate, we get $1 for it. We love that dollar because we get lots of them, and they make lots of dollars. And we serve everybody equally. We don't care what party you belong to. We don't care what nationality you are. We don't care what you want. If you come to our office, we are there to serve you for what you want.
And Mr. Salley, to you, what skills in the business sector or otherwise would you bring to the county clerk's office that would be over your opponent?
As I said, I have a master's degree in information technology. I'm a skilled computer professional. He's been complaining about lines being down at the state level and not getting communication through. It goes much faster for repairs if you have a professional at each end working on the problem. And I had some business experience, yes. I have been a Y2K programmer for Plantrol Systems in Westfield. I was telephone technical support for Time Warner Cable before they became Spectrum. So I am used to working in a business environment for the public.
Mr. Barmore, would you like to rebut to that?
Well, sure. No offense to Mr. Salley, but he keeps telling us how he's a database genius, and I don't doubt that a bit. But that has nothing to do with our department. That's IT. And when the state computers go down, the state fixes them in Albany. We don't touch them. In fact, we don't touch the computers in front of us at our desk. If we try to do anything to any of those computers, they'll take them away from us. I mean, we're inputting data, yes, but we're not data input geniuses. You know, we don't fix our computers. We don't really even have to know much about computers other than how to use them, which pretty much is in any office setting. And I think Mr. Salley has a completely wrong idea of what we do in the county clerk's office.
Mr. Salley?
Okay, I'm not saying that you would be repairing that, but I would be able to run diagnostics and give more accurate information to the state other than it's down. I think we would recommend various tests back and forth. I'd be giving them advice, not actually doing hands-on work. As he said, they are state computers and I would not be able to touch them. But this is a situation I've been in before. With Time Warner Cable, I was helping people that I wasn't even in the same city for.
Is that something you would want to change as county clerk, is maybe having the county have the technology here so you could be able to address that in your position?
I think it would be a wonderful thing if we had some sort of backup system where when the state went down, we could at least take in information instead of everybody sitting in twiddling on their thumbs, and then when the connection goes back up, you're uploading all that data rather than having everybody sitting around and waiting. I think it would be a wonderful addition.
Mr. Barmore?
I agree. It'd be a wonderful addition. The state would never allow it. The state has their system, and we use their system, and there's no backup, and you don't touch it, and they don't ask you for any advice when they want it fixed, and when it's fixed, you know because it starts working again. In fact, I had Kathy Young working on it several years ago, and the head of IT sent her a letter saying how proud he was that the system hadn't been down in 6 months. And as Kathy brought me that letter to read, the system had already been down 3 hours that day and probably a total of 30 hours in the last month. But, I mean, they won't even admit they have a problem. And so, I mean, it's the way it is. We don't work the computers. We are not allowed to have our own websites or anything like that. I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but he's just thinking of something that is never going to exist.
I wanted to go back to the DMV here for a moment because I've had the opportunity over the past few months to go in a couple of times to the Jamestown office. One time I went in about mid-afternoon and there was a long line and I had a bit of a wait. The second time it was early afternoon and I was able to be taken right away. Is there anything that can be done to better get people into the building and out, or are we kind of locked into this situation? I'll go to Mr. Barmore first.
Really has nothing to do with getting people in and out of the building. It's when they choose to come. And for some reason in Jamestown, going to the DMV seems to be a family outing. Oftentimes you'll see 20 people in line and only 5 of them are there to do something. Tried to discourage that, but it doesn't seem to work very well. It's hard to change habits. I've had people before call and yell, I went down there and the line was 50 people long. I says, well, it's the first of the month and it's a Monday. What do you expect? Come back on Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon and you'll walk right in. Well, I don't want to come back at Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon. Well, you know, you can't please everybody. We do the best we can. And, you know, when you get a big long line, you have a big long line. It's because everybody decided to come. And when you walk right in, it's because no one decided to come at that time. It's like going to the grocery store. If you go at 6 o'clock on Friday night, you know you're going to be mobbed. If you want to shop at Thursday afternoon at 2, you probably can walk the aisles all by yourself.
Mr. Salley, you have brought this particular topic up before. How do you feel it should be handled? Is it being handled as best as can be?
I don't think so. Okay, Department of Motor Vehicles runs on an accessibility scenario we nickname fast food. You walk in the door, you're in line, you get to the front of the line, you tell them what you want, they give you your product, you pay your fee, and you're out the door, next person. That's perfectly adequate for normal situations. As he said, there are peak times when there's going to be long lines. The pandemic caused a huge line. What you do is you switch to an accessibility scenario, doctor's office. You call up and you have people call a phone number or go onto a website and make an appointment and say, I want to do this. And they say, okay, you need document A, B, C. The fee will be so much. It'll take 20 minutes. Can you come in at Wednesday at 11:20? And this way there is no line, especially in bad weather, over hot weather, or cold and windy and rainy days. You have to switch the format by which you're working, if at all humanly possible.
Mr. Barmore, I know that there were appointments that were able to be made at DMVs as we came out of the pandemic. Is that situation still in place? Can people make appointments, or is that something that cannot be done?
Well, when we first opened back up from being totally closed down in 2020, the governor mandated that we have an appointment-only system. I knew it wasn't going to work, but we did it anyways. And within a week, we were booked to 3-4 months ahead. Many people made multiple appointments, which they never showed up for, but you know, we have no way of policing that. And it just did not work. Now that we've gone back to normal situations, we still have appointments available at each office. We have one clerk that takes appointments every day. And on average, that clerk gets about 6 appointments. That's how much Chautauqua County residents want to have an appointment. They just want to walk in when they feel like it, because that's always the way they've done it. You can't make them change if they don't want to change. But they have the ability, and they're not doing it, you know?
Just to clarify, is that 6 at each one, or is that spread out over all
6
3?
at each one.
Yeah.
Per day. Sometimes we might get 10, but it might be 4 other days. You never know.
Okay. Mr. Salley, anything you'd like to add?
As he said, people started using the system when it was available, and you always have to allow for people that make appointments and don't show up, same as a doctor's office scenario. This is a common problem in IT, and there are workarounds for it. I think once you got people into the habit of doing it this way, they would keep on doing it this way and minimize, particularly when we had the pandemic and there were lines outside. It's like no one wants to stand out line halfway down the block.
Thank you.
We had the lines because the governor said we couldn't have any more than 2 people in the office at a time. 20 people showed up, 18 of them stood outside in a line until they were called in.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Terry. Cybersecurity is on the minds, I think, of many folks with several companies nationwide impacted by hackers. In your opinion, is Chautauqua County secured in this sector? If not, is there anything that can be done to improve security? Mr. Salley, we'll start with you.
I haven't seen the nuts and bolts of how it works, so I can't give you specifics. But I do have some classes that I've taken in my master's degree in cybersecurity, so I would be looking over what we have, what the potential weaknesses are, and how to bolster them. But until I actually see the system, I can't say how good or bad it currently is.
Mr. Barmore, for you as the head clerk right now, is the county secured? And if not, what could be done?
Well, the county clerk system is very secure. We have an outside vendor that we have all our records on, and they're all backed up in the vendor's office in Syracuse. I mean, as far as the county's system goes, we've been hacked before since I've been there in 8 years. People are sending us emails weekly, just like they are everybody, trying to get into your system. We're no different than anybody else, but I would say it's about next to impossible for someone to hack our records storage system that we use in the county clerk's office. And if they did, it's completely backed up in another system, and they can download it back to us in the next day.
Mr. Salley, anything to add on the topic of cybersecurity?
When people hack into a system to get information, they're not trying to bring down the system. They're trying to copy the information for their own use. Oh, this person's insurance is this one. I'll sell this information to another insurance company, and they can offer them better deals. Hospitals get hacked, and they take a list of the heart patients that they can sell heart medication to. So it's not a question of the system coming down and being brought back up. It's a question of the information being taken and stolen. That's your biggest cybersecurity issue.
What would you do to combat that? Is there any?
As I said, I haven't seen the nuts and bolts of it. I would be doing a very thorough inspection during my first couple of weeks. So I can't really answer the question as a technical person because I haven't seen the system up close. But that is your biggest issue, is people stealing the information, not trying to corrupt it.
Mr. Barmore, anything to add?
Well, once again, Mr. Salley is dreaming. You will not be allowed in the IT department. You will not be allowed to look at the servers or anything else. As county clerk, you do your job in your office. You run your departments. The IT department runs the computer system. And the county clerk is not allowed down there unless you just want to go down and talk to John, the director, and say hi to him. He's not going to let you touch his computer servers.
Thank you.
I wanted to go back to the DMV for a moment. In fact, you can call me Terry DMV Frank tonight.
Terry DMV Frank.
Parking does remain an issue with the Jamestown DMV, and I know Mr. Barmore has attempted to get designated on-street parking for patrons. However, the city has nixed that idea up to this point. Is there much that can be done, because you only have about half of that small lot now on West 3rd Street? I'll let Mr. Barmore take this one first.
Well, I went to several city council meetings trying to get them to take the meters down, even on a temporary trial basis. And Mr. Tracy refused to allow the city to do that. We have a new mayor now, which I get along with very well. And so I plan to go back and approach the council again. You can go down to our DMV in Jamestown anytime you want to, and every space on the street is empty. And you'll see a 4-door, 1-ton pickup truck with a trailer hitch on the back trying to squeeze into the parking lot between 2 mini cars because they're too cheap to put a quarter in the meter. It's just human nature. And, if they could take those meters off, people would park in the street. It would end all the problems. What I got from the mayor before was, well, if you want it, we'll have to do it for everybody. Well, I can take you to several places in this city and show you where they've already done it for others. But our problems are between him and I. Mayor Sundquist, that's his name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, yes. Yes. him and I get along very well, and I'll be approaching him again, not in the too distant future.
That's good. Mr. Salley, your response, I know that you've had some concerns about the number of spaces as well as where they are.
Yes. We agree that this is an issue. People need to have adequate parking. There needs to be more disability spaces at the very least. They had one disability space, and that was all the way to the sidewalk, farthest from the door, and as far as I know, there's none currently on the street. If we cannot get free parking on the street, we're going to have to look for a different location, renegotiate with the city, argue, fight for it. You want someone fighting for the people, not saying, oh, okay, if that's what we have to deal with. I would be fighting to get a different location.
Mr. Barmore, would you fight for a new location, or are you fine where you are as far as Jamestown goes?
Well, the place is very well accepted. I mean, I agree there's parking issues, but compare it to the no parking lot that we used to have. Compare it to the side hill where we used to be on Pine Street, when you had to park 4 blocks away and walk down a slippery sidewalk to get to the DMV through all kinds of people standing in your way smoking cigarettes. Now we're in a nice area of the city. It's nice and level. Maybe people don't choose to park on the street, but they can. And, you know, the layout inside the building is very conducive to doing business, unlike the old place. We could move. I get people call me all the time. But do you want us to move to the Chautauqua Mall? Do you want us to move to the Southside Plaza? You want us to move to Falconer? I mean, that's where people are calling me all the time. They want us to move there. I don't see it making anything any better.
Mr. Salley, would you like to rebut for a moment?
Well, if we could get something in the Chautauqua Mall, that would save on the parking issue, because they've got lots and lots of lots. We're agreeing that this is the parking is the issue, and I don't think, well, it's better than it used to be, it's not getting any worse, should be an adequate goal. We should be striving to improve the situation, not maintaining the status quo.
And 20% of our customers walk there. And they would not be able to do that if we moved to a different location. Now, everybody that uses a DMV is there to get something for a car. We also issue non-driver identifications for people that need them for various reasons, and they don't drive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. We know the county clerk's office handles a lot of different businesses, from the aforementioned DMV to court filings. In general, are there any efficiencies that can be brought to the office or are already in place that will help save taxpayers money? Mr. Salley, let's start with you.
That would be one of the first things I would be studying, that once I got into the office, would be where I can make things more efficient. When you make things more efficient, you make them less expensive. So, but everything, I've had multiple meet and greets while I've been campaigning, the fundraisers, I've been talking to people, and the two issues that come up over and over again is Dunkirk parking, Jamestown parking. I brought up the weights and measures. Matter of fact, in Access Chautauqua last week, we discussed this. No one's having complaints about the gasoline pumps. No one's having complaints about the genealogy records. Several of the real estate lawyers have said, whatever you do, don't you dare touch the search and survey people. They are angels, they are gems, they are efficient as anything, and don't you dare touch them. So it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I will be looking for ways to make things more efficient, but the only complaints I'm hearing during meets and greets and my fundraisers is the DMVs, the DMVs, the DMVs. So that's where I will be focusing.
Mr. Barmore, anything that you would continue to work on?
Well, the angels all work there because I hired everyone. Yes, we've already implemented e-filing and e-recording. In fact, e-filing was first available on January 2nd, 2014, my very first day. I went into the office when I decided to run for county clerk at least once a week and work with Sandy Sopak. Sandy Sopak told me of all the things that she wanted to do, but wasn't going to be able to because she wasn't going to be there any longer. So we worked together, we developed plans, and when I got there, well, the plans were all in place and when they took effect. we had e-filing on my first day in office. In 2016, the state offered us e-recording we had on my first day in office. 2016, the state offered e-filing for court records, court cases, and they asked for consensual counties like guinea pigs, more or less. And we jumped right on the bandwagon. We were one of the first counties to start doing it. By the time they made it mandatory, we had it down pat. And it's, like I said, it's lowered our paper handling 90%. I used to get a stack of mail that high on Monday morning. It's like this now. We don't have to scan all that paperwork in. We don't have to mail it back. We save money for the attorneys. We save money for ourselves. And I've been able to not replace a staff and a half at a cost savings of $70,000 because of going to the e-filing and the e-recording.
Mr. Salley, anything to add?
As he says, this was done through the state. The state made the offer to come in and do it and pay for it. All the county did was say, yes, we are willing to have you test the system on us. I would have done the exact same thing and snapped on it. So I don't see much difference there. If someone's going to offer me a system that will make things more efficient, yes, I'm going to grab it. I think that's only common sense.
Mr. Barmore?
Well, another thing, you know, we got behind in the weights and measures inspections because our director left. Actually, we promoted the assistant director, and it was a while before we got a new assistant, and they were a bit behind, so I used to go out once a week in the field with them. The first thing I noticed in the unit pricing law, you walk into a store, there's no price on the product, it's on the shelf. Well, you have to pay for that privilege, and you get that privilege by having an accuracy rating of 98% or higher. Well, the current law required us to go back a second time, even though they had 100% rating the first time we inspected them. I rewrote the law, convinced the legislature to pass it. We reduced it down to one inspection. Now we're not getting in the merchant's way. We're getting more inspections done, and we've got more people to sign on to the law, to the unit pricing waiver, and we've collected more money, and because of that, I've reduced the taxpayer cost in the Weights and Measures Department $90,000 over what it was when I first got there.
All right, we are to our final question, which is my privilege to ask. Yay. And so we will start with Mr. Barmore. So the question is, and this will be restating for both of you, but what are your goals for the department, whether it's in terms of services or in general administration of the office?
Well, we're generally always looking for ways to do business more efficiently, help more people. We're constantly having to hire new people because people always change jobs, and but we've been cross-training all our employees in our office. We had it all done, but now we're kind of back to 50% again because they had a couple people leave and we're hiring new people. But our court people know how to do the land records. Our land records people know how to do the court records. I help Michelle Henry. I mean, if anybody that knows me knows that I'm Mr. Historian. But I love history, and we work together a lot, and anything we can do. I mean, I'm willing to listen to any suggestions that people have. Lots of times people have suggestions that sound good, but they don't realize that it's impossible to implement them, but you still welcome the suggestions. And I have to admit, it took me a while to get used to working for a government. It's not like being in your own business. Yes, Justin, you look good. Start tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Can't do that in the government. Position sits empty for 6 to 8 weeks once somebody leaves before you can get it filled. And it makes things difficult. So you have to cross-train people so that people can fill in for others when there's nobody there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Salley, same question. What are your goals for the department, whether in terms of services or in administration?
My primary goal is to find more Spanish speakers. That's the one thing that kept getting hammered over and over at the meet and greets. As he said, you're always looking for ways to make things more efficient, cross-training, taking suggestions from people, working out possibilities. So that's always going to be the top of the agenda. As a computer programmer, I was a Y2K programmer for Plantrol Systems. We were putting in 60-hour weeks, working Monday through Saturday. So I'm not going to be punching a time clock. I'm going to be doing the job until the job gets done. That's something I can pledge to the people.
Mr. Barmore, do you have a rebuttal?
Well, pretty much said what I said, I guess. The only thing I can add is, you know, through the course of our speeches tonight, Mr. Salley has mentioned search and surveys being part of our department, marriage licenses, trying to find out who Uncle Larry married and all this stuff. Well, marriage licenses are handled by the town clerk and the city clerk. We have nothing to do with it. We don't do searches, that's title search companies. We don't do surveys, that's surveyor companies. Mr. Salley just doesn't have a real good handle on what we do there. I mean, what he says sounds nice to somebody that doesn't know either, but I know. And I hear a lot of things that he's saying, and it's just things that we don't do, things that we can't do, and there's reasons for it, you know.
Mr. Salley, do you have a rebuttal?
He has been in the office. He may know a few more details. I can't. I'm coming in with a fresh perspective. I'm not going to do same old, okay, we're not going to get any worse. I'm going to be looking for ways to make the office more efficient and working with the people, getting the people what they want. So I think a fresh perspective is a good thing.
Okay. We now move to the portion of the program where you guys get to ask the questions. So each candidate will have the opportunity to pose one question to their opponent. The opponent will be given 90 seconds to respond. The questioner then has up to 60 seconds for rebuttal, and the opponent will have 30 seconds for the final rebuttal. So starting with the first candidate, and seeing as how we started Mr. Barmore, Mr. Salley, you can ask Mr. Barmore your question.
Mr. Barmore has said on several occasions that Chautauqua was one of the first DMVs to open after the governor gave the okay. I did some internet research, and I've come up with entirely different statistics. The Erie County opened June 16th, 2020. Niagara County, June 21st, 2020. Cattaraugus County, June 21st. Genesee County, June 17th. Monroe County, June 16th. Livingston County, June 18th. Ontario County, June 17th. All had their DMVs open before Chautauqua County opened on June the 22nd. People were lining up around the block the first 2 days. And according to the Observer today, on June the 27th, they reported that the Chautauqua County office had to shut down for the near future because they were unable to process the amount of paperwork needing to be processed. They stayed closed for nearly a week. How can you claim you were ready early when this occurred and you were actually one of the last counties in Western New York to open?
Well, for starters, when I said that we opened before we were allowed to, I thought you were talking about this year. We did open in April, and the governor didn't give us the okay till nearly the end of May. But going back to what you're talking about in 2020, in fact, I have the governor's thing right here, and it says when we reach phase 3, we will be allowed to open. Our county health department said that we expect to reach phase 3 on Friday the 19th. So we made plans to open the following Monday on the 22nd, the same day that 4 other adjoining counties opened, by the way. Yes, a couple other counties did open earlier, 3 whole business days. I mean, if you're going to hang me for that. But you also have to realize that we had to have the permission of our employees that they felt safe opening and allowing customers in the office before we could do it. I just couldn't shove it down their throats. So, you know, we took care of that. And I don't know where you're getting where I said we couldn't handle the paperwork and we had to close, because I have the article right here, and I never said any such thing. We closed because we opened without an appointment system, which I knew wouldn't work. And our health department, our legal department, our county executive's office decided that that shouldn't be the way we do it. So we all agreed that we close down for a week, get everything done, and reboot and start with an appointment system, which we did, which immediately filled up to 4 months in advance, clogged the whole system, and nobody could get into the DMV.
Okay. Mr. Salley, you have 60 seconds for rebuttal.
Nobody is asking you to force the things down the workers' throats. This should have been, why did it take so long for them to feel comfortable? Why weren't things started sooner? I would have been starting to work as soon as the offices were shut down and trying to see what do we need to get open as soon as possible. So this is a case of my putting in overtime to do the job right.
Mr. Salley is ignorant of the fact that the governor told us when we could open. It wasn't our decision.
Okay. All right, Mr. Barmore, you have an opportunity to now ask Mr. Salley a question.
Sure, just something that's been bugging me all day long. And when you were on WNY News Now, you made a comment, and I had it wrote down, and I lost it, so I'm going to have to do this from memory. But you said that we opened, and people lined up out the door and around the corner like they were standing in line at a soup kitchen. And you meant that in a derogatory way. So I'm wondering, what do you have against soup kitchens and the unfortunates that have to go there?
I have nothing against people who have been unfortunate. I've had quite a few friends who have been in soup kitchens. I'm just saying it's not the correct model for a Department of Motor Vehicles. And actually, when I said that, I was quoting someone who had a letter to the editor in the Observer today. So you can read that. That's in print. I was quoting someone who was dissatisfied with the motor vehicle office.
Mr. Barmore, you have 60 seconds for rebuttal.
Well, basically, like I said before, we were allowed 2 people in the office at a time, and if 20 showed up, 18 of them stood outside the door and around the side of the building. There was nothing we could do about it. It wasn't my choice. It was the orders from the state of New York, from the director of motor vehicles. No more than we had to space people apart, and the spacing we were given allowed us 2 customers at a time, and that's what we did.
Okay. Mr. Salley, do you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal if you choose?
I would have been going down the line with a clipboard and saying, what are you coming to the office for? Okay, that's going to take so many minutes. Can you come back at 11 o'clock? Can you come back at 10:30? Can you come back at a different time? And go down the line and make appointments for that day so they can go off, do the grocery shopping, come back, and then get served. There are ways to cut down the lines. I just don't feel enough was being done.
Okay, thank you. We are now at the point where candidates will be giving your closing statements, and we will switch from who started with the opening. So, Mr. Barmore, you're welcome to have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you for inviting me to this forum tonight. It's been a great way of getting my message out to the voters. When you go to the polls on November 2nd, or participate in early or absentee voting, I would like you to remember which candidate has over 40 years of business experience. I would like you to remember which candidate has hired and managed hundreds of employees over 4 decades. Remember which candidate was one of the first clerks in New York State to go electronic in the clerk's office to save time and money. Remember which candidate put an end to interdepartmental billing of county records so that all records would be stored properly in controlled storage areas. Remember which candidate rewrote the unit pricing law to streamline inspections in the Weights and Measurements Department. Remember which candidate already has 8 years' experience in the county clerk's office and has spent that time reducing taxpayer spending by $750,000. Remember which candidate will continue working for you and continue to lower taxpayer costs in the county clerk's office. My name is Larry Barmore. I love my job, and I would love to continue serving you as your Chautauqua County Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Barmore. Mr. Salley, you have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you. I am not a businessman. I am a database professional. As I said, the Office of County Clerk is the office of the database manager, and I feel that a computer science person is far more qualified to understand the nuts and bolts of what's going on than a business. Saving taxpayer money is good, but like the post office, the money that's spent is an investment in serving all of the people. This is why I want to have a Spanish speaker. This is why I want to have larger parking lots, even if we have to pay a few more bucks here and there. Businesses only concentrate on what's profitable. I intend to serve everyone. I'd like to remind everybody that early voting starts October 23rd through the 31st and is going to be at the Chautauqua County Fairgrounds, so come in early if you don't want to wait in lines. My website is sallyforclerk.com. I have an active social media page on Sally for Clerk. It's updated at least twice daily with the current progress of COVID in Chautauqua County, plus what our local community leaders are doing that affect Chautauqua, plus articles on what the state and federal leaders and even the White House is doing that would affect the people of Chautauqua County. So if you want to stay informed and up to date, please follow my media page and like the page. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salley, and thank you to both our candidates for participating in this debate. Thank you to our audience, whether online or here in person behind us. You will be able to hear this presentation online at WRFA LP as well after tonight. View it on WNYNewsNow.com and hear rebroadcasts on WJTN as well as WRFA. We invite you to tune in at 6 p.m. next Thursday, October 21st, for the Meet the Candidates Forum for Jamestown City Council Ward Council candidates, followed by the At-Large Candidates Forum at 7 p.m. and ending at 8 p.m. with the Chautauqua County Executive Debates. On behalf of our media partners, Terry Frank and Justin Gould, as well as the entire WRFA team, thank you for being with us today, and good night.